because I came in the mail today. Before this video starts, I just want you to know that I am no professional in terms of trying to review switches. I just give my first impressions, and I have my own methods of going about giving those first impressions, and that's about it. I don't have anything in terms of professional equipment. All I have is this camera, this microphone, which I'm going to be trying out today in terms of trying to do sound tests, and this camera that is a iPhone 6s camera. So NovelKeys finally came out with their tactile switch. They're called the NK Blueberries, and in terms of what is going on with them, that is going to complete their lineup of a linear, a clicky, and now a tactile switch. Now, the selling point of these switches are supposed to be something pretty unique. They are supposed to have, in addition to a medium weighting with 55 grams actuation, 70 grams peak force, and 80 grams bottom out, we also have a 3mm long drawn out tactile bump, as what the website says. And that is very interesting in terms of what it brings to the tactile market, because I wasn't really a fan of like super drawn out bumps to begin with, because I know some switches do that. I can't list any off the top of my head, of course, because I'm retarded. But a modern MX switch doing this is going to be very interesting, because I don't know if it will be pulled off well, or it will actually be pulled off correctly. Because I know for a fact that NovelKeys creams, at least, they aren't as smooth as one might think. In my Everglide video that I compared linears and tactiles with, it's very clear that they have a very prominent scratch to them. And I'm assuming that because these blueberries are just kind of reworked creams with a tactile stem in it, I can only assume that the scratchiness factor is not going to go away unless if I lube it with something very, very heavy, like 205 grade 0, or maybe even Tribosys 3204. So with that being said, here is my package of blueberries. Jesus. There we go, focus. There we go, cool. They look kind of cool, I think. And here we have one in the flesh. Took it out of the packaging a little while ago, and I haven't clicked it yet, so I suppose here is the initial impressions of judging the tactility. Of course, how I judge tactility is basically going to be the same as I did with the TTC switches, where I feel out the tactile bump, and I also feel out the travel and see where it goes from there, because a tactile switch can only have so many parts to the switch action, right? So I'm going to be trying this stock, and then I will be comparing it to lubed performances in a different sort of way. I'm going to be doing something pretty special, but it's going to be borderline retarded, so I hope you're ready for that. If you already know what stock switches sound like because you watched the Deha video, then feel free to skip to this timestamp right here. In any case, here is the little switch action in terms of the NovelKeys Blueberry. So there we go. Oh. What the fuck? So, right off the bat, we have a problem. It's very weird. And I'm not sure if it's a good or bad thing, because there appears to be some very odd sensation of there being a double bump. So usually a switch, in terms of tactility, you will have just one bump. So for example, here is a Gatoron Silent Brown with the alias stem in it. So if you have a bump, it's just, we have the travel, and here's the bump. Oh, travel, bump, travel, travel, bump, travel. With the blueberries, when on the way down, at least with this spring weight of being stock, it is arguably weird. Like, I don't know how to really... Here, watch for yourself. I'll narrate it as I go. So here, first of all, there's a lot of pre-travel. And then there's a little notch right here. You can, like, it's more tactile on the upstroke than the downstroke. So here is the initial bump, and then stops and goes for another bump right here. So travel, bump, or travel, travel, bump, bump. Like, I don't know if you can see that, but it's very, very segmented. It's obvious that there's two bumps in here. Again, I'll try this again. Travel, bump, bump, travel, travel, bump, bump, travel. And oh my god, it's kind of blowing my mind because I'm not sure if I like that or not. And I'm genuinely not sure how that's supposed to be because most switches, like I said, again, they just have one bump and then you have clearance for the return. So let's just try and put these. I'll put a keycap on this and see what it sounds like because this is blowing my mind a little bit. Speaking of which, I actually modified ahead of time a switch with a very, very, very low weighting. In fact, here they are. It is a TX keyboard 60-gram bottom out weight spring. And let me test this before we go on any further because I didn't lube this at all. I just modded it with a different spring. Let's try this. Let me press it out fast. Oh, wow. Okay, so right off the bat, very, very different. The bump, or the double bump rather, is not as prominent. So we have, if you just really look for it, here is the travel, bump, bump, travel. But it takes a lot less effort to push this now. So you can almost just see it. Look how much, if I don't count the middle bump, this is how big the bump is. So you have travel, bump. It's the entire switch. And I'm not sure how to feel about that. You can probably, hold on, let me pull it up to the microphone. So see if you can listen for the double bump. And then I can try to visibly demonstrate it here. It's like kind of like a two-stage trigger, like a revolver, where you have this that turns like it clears this first to turn the cylinder and then fires. I don't know how to feel about that. Jesus. It also sounds different because it's springing back up so quickly. So. I don't know. So anyway, let's put a keycap on this bitch. Here is a caps lock key. Here we are. I'm gonna hold it up to the microphone here and here we are in front of the camera. You can very clearly see that this thing will spring back on you. It has a pretty prominent tactile bump. I cannot take that away from this switch. This switch most definitely does have a tactile bump, and I do believe NovelKeys successfully made a tactile switch. However, will the tactility method, or rather feeling, be liked by a lot of people? Well, I suppose it depends on the popularity and the general reception when more and more people get their hands on these switches. I was just lucky enough to be able to open these up and produce a amateurish video documenting my first impressions on NovelKeys blueberries. So with that being said, let's compare it lubed now. So here we are. So here we are with a NovelKeys blueberry stem, just showcasing a little bit, showing the legs. And of course it has the extended bottom like the cream stems, in which I have one right here. A little jut sticking out, you see that? Now the interesting finding that I found in terms of a NovelKeys blueberry is that I think it definitely has to do with the leaf. And by that, take a look at the NovelKeys blueberry. And do you see, hold on, Is there any shiny, pointy object I can use to point this out? I don't know. I have a pen here, but it's not really bright. But you can probably see in the tactile leaf in there, there's like a bump all the way to the top. Do you see that? If not, I'll try to circle it with like a big O or something. But you can see like right there where my shadow is right now, that there's a bump near the top of it, and it seems to be pretty elongated. Like it's very spherical. Now let's take a look at a NovelKeys cream, which is here, and you can see that the bump is not that high up. At least it's not as big. I don't know if it's actually a discernible difference or not, because I'm judging based on the camera, and I'm not really judging it based off the eyesight. But from a glance, it seems like this has a slightly bigger sphere compared to the NovelKeys cream. And why the fuck is the lighting so low? But yeah, I don't know if it's just stems in NovelKeys cream's housing or if it's actually changed up a little bit. I don't have any official word on that, but I just thought I'd mention that because it's a pretty interesting observation. Okay, so here we have a lubed blueberry. Please focus. Thank you. And here we are with regular stock blueberry. So I'm going to hold it up to the camera, the iPhone 6s, and do the sound test and hold it up to the microphone over here to see if there's any discernible difference. I will be back and forthing on the audio, so bear with me. So, lube. And stock. And holding up to the microphone, lube. And stock. Oops. So, yes, lubrication will most definitely help out these NovelKeys blueberries because it not only eliminates spring ping, but appears to be helping the tactile bump by not making it as mushy. Because my initial thing that I didn't mention earlier is that I appear to have some odd sort of, like I said, with the NovelKeys creams, they're scratchy. So the bump isn't as pronounced as I would like them to be, despite the fact that I could feel them. But the lube will definitely help with that case. And with that being said, I'm going to set up a little experiment that will help with deciding what these switches sound like mounted on something. So I'll be right back. Okay, so here is literally just a fucking KBD75 PCB. And I decided to do this test because I know that switches may sound different. Well, obviously they will sound different when they are being tested as a loose switch and when they're tested as being mounted on something. I didn't solder these in, but these things luckily have PCB pins, so I can just mount these inside the PCB mounting holes, and we don't have to worry about the external things such as the switch wobbling. However, because this is foam, I literally mounted it in the fucking foam bed. I'm going to be doing this where I hold the PCB down to prevent it from wobbling and just pressing the switch and seeing where the sound profile takes us. So on the left with this little plus sign, these are number row profile keycaps in terms of a set. So these are also PBT, die sub chalk PBT keycaps from KBD fans. And on the left, this is the lubed one, and on the right here is a stock blueberry. So, lubed blueberry. And on the right is a stock blueberry. I think it's jumping all the way around. Let me move this up a little bit. Let's move it up one notch because I don't trust that. There we go.
Okay, so initial thoughts. The stock Blueberry on a PCB does seem to have this weird drag to the tactility. However, it does seem that regardless of lubrication or not, there is a tactile bump. So again, I reiterate that NovelKeys has succeeded in creating a tactile switch. However, I believe that from experimenting here, that the lubed version, which by the way I lubed with Krytox 206 plus GPL oil, thank you HB Hairwell Bob, that I still would prefer the lubed switch just because of the fact it's a much cleaner tactile bump versus a sort of sluggish, not really sluggish, but like a dirty snap, as if like you're trying to like use a rusted spring to for some whatever reason. So let me take off the stock Blueberry and put on a lubed Everglide Oreo switch because I know that it'd be nice to compare it to another sound profile. As of now, the bump for these are pretty strong, and I don't know if this is really comparable, but I'm doing it anyway. Come on. Okay, so holding it down again, and here is the Blueberry, and here is the Oreo. Oreo. Blueberry. Oreo. Okay, we have a clear winner here in terms of sound. Like, come on. Come on. So it appears that lube performance in terms of sound, I have to give it to the Everglide Oreo. However, the Everglide Oreo loses out in tactility because this fucker is literally rocking my world with how much tactility there is. It almost feels like what Box Royal should have been. I don't have any Holy Pandas to compare because the Holy Pandas I own do not have any feet to pin onto the PCB, so I can't be the judge of that right now. However, in terms of raw put on PCB and put on keycap, I have to give it to the Everglide Oreos. However, let's see how these perform stock. And it just so happens that I have a heavier switch, a heavier version of the Everglide Oreo, which came in the shipment. We have some crystal purples from Everglide as well. So, allow me to bring back the stock Blueberry and take off the lubed one. Oh god. Before we go on, take a look at these little guys. The Everglide Crystal Purple. Oh man, I love it. Okay, keycap. So both these switches are stock. Just letting you know. And I'll hold them down even further here, like this, and click away. So here's a stock Blueberry. And here is a stock Crystal Purple. Oh my god, this thing's wobbling. The tactile bump is causing this switch to literally jump out of its socket because of how shaky it is. Okay, so out of all the switches that I tried today, it is very clear that NovelKeys Blueberries have the advantage in tactile bump. And I think in terms of a switch that's only looking for that, it does its job very well. However, I still prefer the lighter tactile bumps such as the T1s, Holy Pandas, and the Everglides, and all that jazz. But if you were to be looking for a tactile switch, most likely you can probably make this sound better with actual fucking board to put these in, or at least mounting them in something other than just a loose PCB and some foam, then sure, why not? I suggest giving NovelKeys blueberries your attention. However, I reiterate that I am in no way, shape, or form professional, and that you should take my opinions with a grain of salt. But in terms of what I have experimented with today and what I have recorded and have shown you guys at the moment, I personally believe that while I will not be picking up blueberries myself anymore, I highly suggest you giving them a go to at least add to your Switch collection, if not make a build out of these if you're so inclined to. Yeah, that's about it.